We are with music photography legend Barrie Wentzell. Barrie, thank you for giving CFN a little bit of time this afternoon. I know you're really busy and getting ready for the trip to Cornwall to our lovely art gallery for an exhibit.
Well, thank you very much. Wonderful to be invited to Cornwall. I was there a few years back, I think. I can't remember much, except I had a lot of fun there.
So, for people who don't know, who is Barrie Wentzell?
Good question. Well, I'm me, actually. I was a photographer back in the 60s, 70s, mainly working for a musical paper called The Melody Maker, which was a weekly music magazine which started around 1926, I think, for professional musicians. And then when I joined around 65-ish, it was getting more into contemporary music, and I worked for them for about 10 years as a freelance photographer, taking pictures for the articles in the magazine and front pages, and met most everybody. There's only a few people I didn't run into, I guess, but it was an incredible hectic period for 10 years, and
now,
a lot of fun.
How do you fall into a gig like that? Because that's a dream gig. I mean, going through your website, barriewentzell.com, and looking at your gallery and seeing, it's like a walk through music history. I mean, it's fascinating just to see what you captured, and the fact that you interacted with these people and walked with them and talked with them and caught them in human moments. It's unheard of.
It just seemed a normal thing at the time, but I guess, as you say, looking back on it, I guess that was pretty special. I suppose the beginning of the 60s was, we're all sort of in our teens or early 20s, and we'd gone through World War II, the Depression, there was a shortage of ration, and virtually one radio station to listen to. Rock and roll happened with Elvis in the mid-50s onwards, and Lonnie Donegan in England was a skiffle sort of hero, and he had an acoustic guitar, and we found, if you could find a guitar, a washboard, a TJS bass, you could make music, and England was full of TJS and washboards, and very hard to find a guitar, but that's how the Beatles started, influenced by Lonnie Donegan and the American black music of Chicago, and that we sort of were interested in the American music, but we had English folk roots, I guess, and that all came out somehow into the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Kings. And around that time, I was just starting photography and worked in a real photographic studio shooting pork pies and boring stuff like that.
The Rolling Stones in particular had a real influence in supporting a lot of American soul acts and black acts in the 60s London. How did that roll over? It was touched on a little bit in the movie The Commitments, where you saw a little bit of that impression, but what was it like living through that?
Well, I just watched the Keith Richards documentary, and he goes back to Chicago, to Muddy Waters' old house, and I saw him interviewed on TV by somebody, and Jimmy Kimmel, I think, who said, "Oh, thank you for telling me about Howling Wolf." I went, "What the hell? You Americans didn't know that you had Howling Wolf, Muddy Waters, J.B. Lenoir, Robert Johnson. They didn't know." Somehow it was only on black stations, I guess, and in England it was like, wow, when we heard Smokestack Lightning in Howling Wolf, it was like, wow, that's incredible. And Muddy Waters, I mean, the Rolling Stones started by taking the name off of Muddy Waters' album, The Road of Rolling Stone. There was a great reverence for American blues artists, and when they came to England, they were totally stunned that people wanted to see them.
Well, Led Zeppelin...
Listen to them, whereas back home, Muddy Waters punching the record on the studio and only playing in the little, and totally unknown, because that wasn't broadcast. So it wasn't general music. America was segregated in its music taste, but we absorbed all of that. Rock and roll to Eastern mysticism,
Yeah, and of course, Led Zeppelin, it turned out years later, some of their biggest hits came from American music that they pretty much lifted.
Well, thank you to Willie Dixon
Yeah.
It was, yeah. But that was the roots of what we were. Excuse me, the Stones and those bands were doing, listening to Chuck Berry, and Little Richard, and apart from Elvis as well as Buddy Holly and that. But it was amazing. Oh wow, we've got to get some of that in, and hearing Hubert Sumlin's guitar on. Wow, we want to play like that. The sound. It was all about the sound and the feeling. And I don't know, there was an empathy for the English because we'd been through a lot of deprivation, and a lot of us were living in squalor. Where I lived in London in the early 60s had been bombed next door. We were fresh from that.
Right.
Years later, when I went to Harlem and the Bronx and that, and so devastation. Yeah, but it was done by the Luftwaffe. You did it to yourselves. Wow. So I guess the American music, especially the blues, was a huge influence. It started Led Zeppelin.
Now, technology-wise, I mean, some of your images are iconic and legendary. Nowadays, we have high-res digital cameras and Photoshop. Back then, you had to load film, and then you had to process the film. How much of that was a role for a photographer like yourself? And how have things changed over the years for you?
Well, I guess now it's totally different. The analog days. Well, fortunately, I started in a photographer's studio, learning how to mix the chemicals, be in the dark for 2 hours, processing film, loading in the dark, and doing all of the production stuff, which was like alchemy. You're in a sort of old world here with all these chemicals. It was a totally physical experience and smell and taste, and there were so many variants in developing a picture even, and then coming to print a picture. So it did take a lot of time. I mean, now it's instantaneous. You can press a button and it's on the front page in seconds, or on Facebook. But back then it was like, as most gigs used to happen at the weekend, I was processing film and printing stuff up till early Monday morning because it was press day. It was incredibly busy and intensive, but it didn't seem the problem. I don't know why. I was working really quickly, and the pictures got in the paper the next week, so it was like the internet of then, but it was a totally analog process, from taking the pictures in, and the designer would physically cut and paste stuff, and it'd go to the printers on an old printing machine, and it'd be on the newsstand the next day. That was almost instantaneous back then. A lot of pressure, but it didn't seem that way because, I don't know, work was fun and fun was work.
Back in the day, and we're talking nearly 50 years ago, how much at your peak did you make at Melody Maker? Did you get paid by the photo, or was it a salary gig? Or
I think for the first picture I did at Diana Ross back in '65, and that's something like 12 and sixpence, which is probably $1.50 or something like that. But they did give me a monthly retainer at some point.
Okay.
Ridiculous amount, just to sort of drop in the pictures first and that, and I got paid for the reproduction, but I never made much money out of it. It was just like, it's paying for itself, the chemicals and that, and fortunately we didn't have to spend much on expenses because record companies would fly you here and there, and everything could be catered for, and because you were working for the Melody Maker, which was called the Bible. It was very well respected. You could get to see the most amazing people and be taken seriously, and take them seriously too, because we weren't a political organisation. It wasn't it was more just about the music, and it was amazing just chatting to all of these people. I've been in the conversation with Clapton, Hendrix, and the Beatles, and you name it, going out on a photo shoot with the Kinks, starting from pubs to pub and actually getting pictures. But that's how it was done. It was organic and free, and now it's all a bit cold and sterile, and you can't do that anymore. There's not that access available to people.
Yeah. Did you become friends with many of the people you photographed?
Well, most of them, yeah. I mean, especially the English stuff, because you'd hang out in clubs and after hours, and they know you from taking pictures, and you say, "Oh man, I really love that picture. Thanks very much." And
yeah.
Well, I don't know how that happened. You got to learn that you were trusted, because we weren't doing paparazzi stuff. It was like, there's some situations you don't
Yeah.
How would you like to be in that situation? There wasn't any of that. There was a lot of trust. A lot of fun went on, but I tried to put people in the best light, as it were, because I was more interested in photography, not the fame or that. I wanted to make a good picture, because when it appeared on the front page with the headline or in the article, I wanted people to feel they were there, not necessarily. You didn't have to. I was right there in the front doing this to show people back home in Solihull, Manchester, or Tanganyika, or wherever they were looking at that, the sense of being there in that situation and what the music was like. We were trying to do a three-dimensional thing and tell a lot of people about the music. That was such a fucking great gig, man.
Yeah.
In there, where we were, and Pops would see them next time they're around.
This week was the anniversary of the shooting death of John Lennon, and you got to work with him from a very young age, and you got to work with him intimately and with the Beatles and with Yoko. Do you have any special thoughts about that, especially this time of the year?
Yeah, poor old John. Well, I don't know, the last photo shoot I did with him was at Clyde Park. I think Yoko had brought out a book, Grapefruit or something. John was helping to promote it. Takes a few pictures in the kitchen. It was a great conversation. They were chatting to a journalist, and John was saying something. Yoko had chipped in with something, and he said, "No, darling, it's right like this." "Oh, no, John," it's like, and so it'd be very much around the table conversation, and occasionally he'd say something, "Well, yeah, but what about?" He seemed to live totally openly and say exactly what, not Donald Trump, but that sort of style, but from his heart and from a deep thought and from a conviction of peace and love. It's for everybody. He was a tough bugger, but he was dead serious, and he didn't have to do any of that. He asked me outside with Yoko to take a picture of a flag, which I thought was a flag, but it was skull and crossbones and all this stuff done by some guy. How America had been instrumental in the worst of genocide, and then he was saying he was thinking of moving to New York, and I'm going, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, you wanted to get away from the fame and that, and you had that freedom in New York back at that time, but Americans and guns dangerous. You should have come here. It would have been much better hanging out with Ronnie Hawkins and Trudeau. He could have done all that here, because all the Canadian artists I know are totally unknown here, and you can walk around and be totally anonymous, but and all the Americans think they're Americans. So it's a quiet country. There's fantastic producers, great talent, but John should have come here.
And you retired to Toronto, correct?
Pardon?
You retired to Toronto?
Well, I came over in 81 on a holiday with my daughter, and ran into an old friend I knew from the 60s. I didn't know he even lived there, and going, "Oh, this is really cool." I came in the winter like this, and it was snowy, and saw the centre of the city, went to Niagara, and it just seemed like paradise, like London could have been if it had carried on with the same vibe from when I left it, but England had turned Maggie Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, and I don't know, Trudeau was here, and I thought, well, Lennon loved Trudeau and being here, and everybody was so friendly. It just seemed like, "Why don't you come and live here?" "Oh, okay, sure." Because when I went back home to the Isle of Wight, it was just like, "Oh, when are you leaving?" Because it was like the golden land of opportunity. You couldn't come back. Why be in England when there was a sort of nirvana, there to go to, which I did find. And this is the most incredible country on the planet. If everywhere was like Canada, there wouldn't be all this crap around the planet.
Well, we are a great country.
We have our own crap to deal with, but that's more on whatever. We can do that over a cup of tea or a smoke, and let's work it out. But not many other people can do that. Not many other cultures are that tolerant of assuming, well, we're all immigrants, and the native people will probably get the worst end of the stick, like everywhere, but it's better than most places. Fantastic country.
All right, we're gonna go into the last section of the interview. What I'm going to do is have a little bit of fun. I'm going to say a name from your gallery of people you've worked with, and I wanted you to tell me the first thought or two that comes into your head. We're gonna do 8 or 10 names. Are you ready?
Of course.
Okay. First name, Jimi Hendrix.
Jimmy, really nice guy. They're opening the Hendrix Museum in England in February, and they got some of my pictures there, and I'll probably go over to say hi to the old room where I took the pictures, and wow, great memory. Great guy, really nice, fantastic. Wild man on stage, but totally cool, funny, and brilliant.
Jim Morrison.
I wish I'd have gone up to him and asked him if I could have taken a few more pictures, but he looked a bit scary when I saw him and intimidating, but wow, I didn't like the Doors much at the time, but really got to like him after mid-late years. Great stuff.
Bob Dylan.
A mystery and an enigma. Somebody who's never known. He dissed me. I asked him something at this when I took a picture, and he started sending me up very clever, and totally unknown. I mean, that Scorsese movie that you know less about him after you've seen him than you did before. Amazing hiding act. Well done.
Cheech and Chong.
Big Bamboo. Oh, right. Funny characters, yeah. I saw them perform at an old club speakeasy. They went through the whole act. It was fantastic, complete with the real smoking stuff. Fantastic. Very funny.
There's a great shot on your website of Elton John holding a ventriloquist dummy. So we'll ask you about Elton John right now.
Elton John, the ventriloquist dummy. Yeah, we went down to see Elton in his new house in Virginia Water, I think it was, with Chris Welsh, and where he had champagne and his mum made us baked beans on toast. And I was walking around the house, and he picked up this dummy, and I know he'd been having trouble with his manager, and he started going on about this is his manager, and saying it was hilarious, very funny. But he did get out of the contract, and he's okay now.
Yeah, he's done all right. Eric Clapton, who I got to see perform live in Montreal with Roger Waters. They did The Wall.
Fantastic.
Back in '84.
Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
I never met him.
You just shot his photo.
Yeah. Eric, nice guy. Yeah, great. I think he was living in the Pheasantry just before the end of Cream, and he was going on about him. He'd been invited by Pete Townsend to go to a movie, which was rare, and he went and he said, he found out it was the deal with Jimi Hendrix. What do we do about Jimi Hendrix? they couldn't find any solution except to accept him and go, he's better than us.
Well, let's.
Guitar player. He's a tasty guitar player, a bit serious, but Cream should never have broken up,
Well, I don't know. That was a lot of talent in one band.
It was Jack and Ginger from Brian Bond's organisation. They were fierce. I went on a car trip with Ginger down Oxford Street, and I'd never been down there so fast. He scared me to death. He was dangerous, man. But I always got on really well with him, but he always fought with Jack. They had a terrible run. That's why Eric left, because he was in the middle of that chain.
You mentioned Pete Townsend, so let's ask about Pete.
Perhaps one of the most deep-thinking, intelligent people I've ever met. I couldn't understand why he wanted to do a rock opera on this blind, deaf, and dumb kid called Tommy. It sounded like a lead balloon to me, but it did really well, and he totally surprised me. But great guy, always interesting to chat to. He had, like Frank Zappa, had a sort of handle on most everything and was deeply into stuff.
Yeah. Marc Bolan?
Oh, Mark. First met him, he was a bopping elf. Tyrannosaurus Rex, really sweet guy, didn't smoke, drink or anything. Took a picture of him, which got in the Melody Maker. Him and his missus June invited me round for tea, which was lovely. Got to know him very well, and when he got his first electric guitar, he phoned up and said, "Hey, I'll take a picture, I've got this Gibson Les Paul guitar, wow," and he went electric and became the huge act in England, not so much in America, I think, but great guy.
Yeah, that came later. Miles Davis?
few pictures of it, but it was Sketches of Spain, I think, was the first album somebody passed me a joint, I think, at a late night party, and put on Sketches of Spain, and I was transfixed. And it still is my favourite album. I thought he was that album, and Teo Marcera's production and Gil Evans' orchestration was the best thing. It was classical music and jazz. It was the highest point of achievement, I think, for American culture and the black music. So it's wow. And Miles, great player. I didn't like the Bitches Brew stuff, but there you go. You can't please everyone.
And how did?
I think old Les Paul told him once back. I saw in an interview that just play the melody, Miles. Just play the melody.
And the very, very young Freddie Mercury that you got to shoot.
Oh, Freddie, yeah. I saw them play, I think. Somebody handed me an album, their first album. I really liked it. And they were playing a gig at Hammersmithing that went along, took a few pictures just before I sort of left the paper. But I remember Freddie came up to the studio because we had a front page Christmas issue to do, and he dressed up with bloody Brahmi. He got drunk with a bottle of whiskey or so. And he came with a girl. I didn't know he was gay, but he was a great character, incredible singer, and sadly missed,
Well, I guess if the public wants more, they're going to have to come down to the Cornwall Public Art Gallery Friday, December 11th, and Saturday, December...
Wait till I finish my book early next year, which I'm doing, writing down all of these story recollections for everybody, just to get rid of it, to remind myself that, this happened. Oh, right, you want to know the story behind the picture and what was going on, not just photographs. So every picture tells a story. Some I can't remember at all. But that's another story.
Well, what's my favorite screenwriting line? Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Well, there's memory blanks, I guess. Apple didn't make good enough brains about those days.
Exactly. All right, Barrie, we're going to see you live in Cornwall tomorrow night. Just hold on a second.